Welcome to Game Theorem, where we have serious discussions about absurd entertainment.
Hey Kira, so what are you playing?
I'm playing Animal Crossing.
Why?
Well, I know it can get tedious with you having to wait literal days for progress, but it's so cute and fun, and I honestly really need that right now.
You realize there's a pandemic going on, right?
Yes, which is exactly why I need cute and fun in my life.
Fair point.
I'm Kira.
I'm Kyle.
And today we're talking about video games as therapy?
Particularly multiplayer ones.
Yes. Although the multiplayer in Animal Crossing is quite shit.
I mean, there's still a heavy social element with it, though.
Yeah, there is. There is.
Animal Crossing, I mean, we'll get into Animal Crossing. I think it's kind of the weird one out of the bunch. Mm-hmm. But why don't you tell our audience more about what we're talking about today, Kira?
Well, we're talking about how the popularity of these multiplayer games like Animal Crossing and on Steam, Fall Guys and Among Us is indicative of what games people play when we're going through societal trauma. Which is what this pandemic is.
Right, but the pandemic's not the only cause. It's the result of the societal rot and dystopia that has been affecting the world for the last century, building up to the point that even America and white people are finally seeing the devastation that they have caused.
Yes, but that's a topic for another episode.
Is it though? Basically, I mean, our point is that things are really bad right now, and it's not just the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Like, the pandemic is really more, I guess, epistemic of previous problems that have been rotting away at our society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's different answers for why that is. Obviously, we've given our takes on what the answers, the solutions to these problems are. But even if you don't agree with that, you probably realize there's definitely something wrong with our world. Again, the pandemic is the perfect example of that. But the pandemic only got as bad as it did because of the way our society is created.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like it was created specifically to make this as worse as possible.
Okay, no, I don't agree with that. Because, like, first of all, the virus came out of China, which wasn't really much of a surprise. China has the largest population in the world, and, you know, given how dictatorial their society is, it's easy to imagine cross-species virus transmission occurring there.
Well, look, I know. I'm just saying that...
But my point is that despite China being the origin point, and despite very few people being surprised about that, China's more or less gotten over the pandemic by now. And America, which, like, there are so many like infamous articles going around of people being like, America is super secure against the pandemic. I saw a chart of, like, likely countries to be hit by a pandemic, and America was at the bottom. And right now, America's doing worse than most other countries in the world. Americans are like pariahs because no other country wants them. And it's kind of ironic considering how we usually treat refugees and immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The fact that it's doing worse in America has nothing to do with any natural consequence. Like, for all the faults of China's horrible government, it would have been kind of understandable for China to have it worst. Because, one, their population, and two, that's where it originated, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, America is the one with it worst, at least in the current moment.
Yeah.
So... And there's no projection of it going away anytime soon. I was saying in March, be prepared for a second wave this winter. And look where we are. Mm-hmm. Everyone's acting like, whoa, it came back a second time. How surprising, please.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
never ended.
And at this point, I'm predicting it to be still around by next year. I think there's a very real possibility of it simply never going away, of coronavirus effectively being the next HIV, just something that a certain percentage of the population has and dies from that we accept as normal. I'm hoping not. But at this point, I see the only way to avoid that is to literally get rid of the problem, America.
Mm-hmm.
So society is bleak right now.
Yeah.
And in these bleak moments, what do we turn to?
Video games.
And I mean, there is an element of privilege to that. We can definitely talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't find it surprising that some people just need to take some mental health reprieve, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we do that, and like, look, I'm all for direct action. I'm all for like going out and protesting. Protests are big right now. That is very important if you are able to do so. If you're disabled, don't worry, we understand. But even when doing that, you still got to take some time to take a load off. And what are you going to do? What video game are you going to load up? Is it going to be Call of Duty Modern Cold World at Warfare 37? Is it going to be Assassin's Creed Revenge of the Civil War reenactment? Is it going to be Ubisoft Full Fash Now? Or
We'll talk about that one later.
Or do you want just something kind of cuddly to take your mind off things? Something to remove yourself from the bleak reality that we are in. And it seems like more and more people might be leaning that way.
Yep. So, what do those games have in common, and why are they so popular?
Well, a lot of people have been going around talking about like there's this meme that's going around on Twitter where people post like AAA game projections and marketing material and ad copy of like these big game companies being like, oh, look how realistic and immersive and graphical fidelity and character faces and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they compare that to the actual games that are selling well. And the actual ones are extremely cartoony. Mm-hmm. You know, Animal Crossing, Fall Guys, Among Us, I think are three of the biggest examples right now. Mm-hmm. Minecraft is also up there, even though it's an old game, but it's still selling really well right now.
Yeah.
So this isn't limited to just the new games, but even the old ones.
Yeah, definitely.
And I like the meme. It's funny, but it's a little inaccurate, honestly.
How so?
Because when people talk about graphical fidelity, they often conflate that with
the realistic style.
with a realistic art style. Those are two very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. You could have like super high res textures and like really good models, but it's just like, you know, funny characters.
Well, that's what Fall Guys does. Mm-hmm. Fall Guys has really good graphics. It has a great resolution, a great color scheme. It has detailed textures. They're all just done in a very cartoony style. I mean, like, there's, like, ambient occlusion, there's shadows, there's specularity. Mm-hmm. Like, Fall Guys has graphical fidelity. We just don't think of it that way because we have been effectively brainwashed by the AAA game industry to conflate graphical fidelity with the immersive realism art style. You know, the whole gritty reboot kind of thing. Mm-hmm. The thing that was phased out of movies a while back, but it still is extremely pervasive in video games.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Why don't we talk about what these games actually are? We haven't even explained. We've been mentioning them, but we haven't even explained what they are.
Go ahead.
If you haven't heard of the Animal Crossing New Horizons, what rock have you been living under?
Patrick's Rock from SpongeBob? It's the only rock under which one could live that I know about. Sorry.
That's hilarious. Anyway, yeah, you're a cute little human villager living with animal friends, and like you go fishing and dig up fossils and make friends with little animals, and it's all cute and wholesome. It also takes 10 minutes to fly to another island.
I have my issues with this game, but let's just move on.
All right. Then let's talk about Fall Guys.
I honestly really like Fall Guys, and I kind of hate it.
Why do you kind of hate it?
I don't like agreeing with the majority of people on like tastes in video games, to be honest.
Well, I'm usually incredibly picky about what games you like, so...
I'm just very used to the popular opinion being a little trash. No offense, if you like Call of Duty, I've been there, but like... I'm just so done with it and I've been done with it for so long, and there's other similar cases where usually the most popular things I just feel are like, they're like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're popcorn fodder. They don't try to make you think. They just appeal to existing tropes and whatnot. And if you want to just turn your mind off and have some fun, go around multiplayer matches shooting people, trust me, I've done that. And yes, I'm a camper. Judge me. Go ahead. I will camp and I will shoot you. I shouldn't threaten to shoot our audience. I'm sorry.
Also, you literally don't play any of those anymore.
Yeah, but that's what I used to do. It's been a while. But my point is, when there's these games that are like Fortnite, where there's a social popular movement to play them, I'm usually just kind of like, nope, I'm out. I get the appeal, but I have other things to do with my time. It's not like that game is making a grand statement.
And also, you don't usually like the games. You're just like, that sounds boring, or nah, I don't think that'd be fun to play, or whatever.
Or even if it was be fun to play, I don't feel like it's worth the work investment.
True.
Now, Fall Guys, I don't think is making any particular grand statement, but it's so fun.
It looks so fun.
It plays like, I know that people call it a battle royale, but it's only a battle royale in the way the multiplayer system is constructed. Aesthetically, there's very little to actually relate it to the concept of a battle royale.
Yeah.
It's a battle royale in the most mechanically core way you could possibly do it, which to me speaks of innovation, of redefining what a genre can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just the idea of like these comical physical challenges, as opposed to like, oh, it's a gun game or an arena game that gets smaller. It's like Mario Party for the new generation.
You didn't even explain what the actual game was.
I thought you did.
No, I didn't, because you started talking about Fall Guys right after I mentioned it.
Oh, well, I basically just hinted at it. You could take the context. Basically there's like, there's you start off with like, was it 64? 60?
I think so.
I forget the exact number, but there's a whole bunch of Fall Guys you start off with. Every single one is a player, an actual player. You're thrown into these mini games and you have to compete until eventually there's only one that becomes the victor.
Most of them are obstacle courses, but there are a variety of different mini games.
The variety needs to be better, quite frankly. But the game just looks fun, and a lot of people seem to agree with that, and that is new for me, to agree that it is fun to play. Like, I don't know, I get really turned away from Fortnite because of like all the microtransactions and the unethical business practices. And those are still there in Fall Guys. But I don't know, I guess I just find them more digestible. Like it's easier to ignore those and just focus on the game itself. Although they are still very present and a definite drawback.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I'm going to talk about Among Us, which is another game that we've mentioned. I've played these sort of style games before. They're like Mafia type games, because Mafia was the original one, where you play as either an innocent who's trying to get rid of the bad people, or a bad person who's just trying to kill all of the innocents or get away with whatever your nefarious goal is.
I think it's important to mention you're basically a bunch of astronauts.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah.
You're a bunch of astronauts, and basically you're trying to fix a sabotaged space station, and they're the imposters who sabotage the space station, and their goal is to kill everyone or sabotage the space station entirely so that everyone dies.
So it's like a microcosm of like a Clue whodunit kind of video game.
Yeah. It's a really cool deception game.
Yeah, imagine someone made like a Clue, like you're trying to like figure out the mystery of who the murderer was.
But it was on a space station.
But also you have truncated the game formula down to its simplest components to be able to be repeated quickly ad nauseum, so that you can have the most absolute fun with it. Here's your average gameplay structure, okay? You start the game. There's a number of imposters. It could be one, could be two, Everyone else is trying to actually do their jobs on the space station or whatever station you're in, right? And the imposter is probably going to kill someone. At which point, when the body is found, or when people discover that someone's missing, they can call a meeting, and you can vote someone off the station and jettison them, killing them. And hopefully you're right. And essentially, when the only person left standing is an imposter, or there's like one imposter and one non-imposter, the imposter will just kill the non-imposter. You win, or the imposter wins. Conversely, the other people win if you manage to get it right and get rid of the imposter.
Or if you manage to fix all of the things on the space station.
Yeah, which effectively means, I guess, you finished your assignment without everyone dying?
Yeah, basically, if you finish all your tasks before the imposters win, you win.
Yeah. Guess they just didn't kill fast enough.
Yeah, that's happened sometimes, but it's really rare, honestly.
So it's a really interesting type of deception game. And is obviously best played with friends.
Yeah.
I wish we had enough friends to play it. Like, we just have to watch playthroughs of it because we haven't had, like, a good way of, like, really trying to arrange a match ourselves. But
Yeah.
that's different than Fall Guys, where you just place with random people. It doesn't matter because you don't have to talk to them.
I think you can do random games in Among Us too. I don't know how though.
I don't know how effective that is, to be honest.
Yeah, because in this type of deception game, you kind of have to know other people a little bit for it to be fun. Those aren't the only games that have actually become more popular. There are some older ones that you mentioned, like
Minecraft.
yes, I'll be honest, I've been playing Minecraft almost nonstop for weeks now.
Yeah, you really got into it all of a sudden. You even got me to play it for the first time. And honestly, I this isn't like the Minecraft episode or anything, but Minecraft is overrated. I'll be honest. Minecraft is very overrated. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still playing it with you, Kira, and it is fun, but it's overrated because the game is just borderline unplayable if you were not a part of the social movement of Minecraft and early YouTube. If you don't like look up information on how to do things, you just won't do them. It's so frustrating with me being a person that just never gave a crap about Minecraft. I mean, I remember literally growing up and like Minecraft and Call of Duty were the two things on YouTube, and I was like, I'll do Call of Duty over Minecraft. And I just feel like Minecraft is so directionless because now coming into it, 10 years later, I'm like, how am I supposed to build a hammer? The game never tells you, ever.
I mean, you have a recipe book now.
Isn't that from a mod?
There is the vanilla recipe book. It's just not very good because you only unlock recipes after you've already done something to unlock them. And then...
Not very good. That's just straight up backwards. How would you like it if you bought like some type of Betty Crocker recipe box, from the store, and it only gave you the instructions on how to cook the noodles after you had burned them? Come on.
Like, for example, it doesn't show you how to make the boats until you get in the water.
So, quite frankly, Minecraft is one of those games that becomes barely playable when you have a whole bunch of good mods for it. But really, at the end of the day, I'm only even able to play it because I have Kira telling me how.
Well, I'm glad you're at least having fun playing it with me.
They just needed, like, some type of, like, in-game quest structure of, like, tutorials and stuff. I
completely agree with you. That is why I didn't get into it at first. But, I mean, you enjoy playing it with me, right?
Yeah, it is a very fun kind of sandboxy kind of game. It's just, in real life, when you're playing in a sandbox, you're not expected to know how to do hydrolysis to turn sand into glass.
You just cook it in a furnace because when sand gets hot, it turns into glass.
How do you build a furnace?
It's just a bunch of stone.
And you have to figure that out by trial and error?
No, that's one of the recipes that's already in your book when you start.
Really?
The furnace one is, yes.
All right, well, you get off this time, Kira. I'm watching you.
Yeah, I'll admit I've had to explain how everything works to you, even how mods, but yeah. What is the one thing these games all have in common, though?
They are completely removed from reality.
Yes, and they are also all multiplayer.
Oh, yes, that too.
Yeah. And none of them try to look realistic like most AAA games that have been released.
I mean, I think the multiplayer aspect is really important because, there's tons of games. There's just tons of them. And many of them are indie games. And look, I think single player games are definitely important and definitely have a place. But I think it speaks to something to the popular consciousness right now that multiplayer games are so desired right now.
Yeah, like I've never seen the insane popularity of blowing up on social media like Animal Crossing New Horizons had.
And I think it's important to talk about the timeline there because Animal Crossing came around right about the time that the pandemic hit the US. Around March, right? And I think Animal Crossing was the first game to really hit that wave of, everyone's stuck inside. There's a pandemic raging. Life is bleak, but we're connected online. So let's have fun together online away from the horribleness of reality. And Animal Crossing allowed for that. Now, I honestly think Animal Crossing is the worst example on this list because it's the only game I actually absolutely pretty much hate.
Okay.
Well, look, I respect...
Says the man who bought it for me and who was happy that I played it for so long.
Look, I respect your taste, that you like it, okay? I just do not have the time to play that game.
Yeah, I know.
That game does not respect your time. In fact...
Time travel, go burr.
Okay, but seriously, even the multiplayer on that game is farcical to the point where, like, if you try to do an island and invite a bunch of friends, every single time a friend shows up, you have to watch like a minute-long cutscene.
Yeah, the multiplayer is kind of bad.
Right.
But even then, like, the community that sprung up around trading items and, like, villagers and, like, people visiting each other is...
Right, but I feel like that's entirely credit due to our current situation in reality. Nintendo timed it pretty well, even if it was an accident. And
yeah, fair enough.
It was, the onset of the American part of the pandemic. I mean, I know other countries had already been experiencing it by that point, but, that's when it really hit America. And, or at least that's when America finally woke up to it. It probably had already been raging in January and February.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, Animal Crossing, like, it's already well peaked, right? It's on its decline. Some people still play it, sure. You just don't hear everyone talking about it like they used to. I think Animal Crossing would have stayed in the public consciousness a lot longer if it had a decent multiplayer.
Yeah, fair enough. I completely agree with you. Because I think Fall Guys and Among Us, for example, are probably going to stay for a while.
Exactly, yeah. They knocked Animal Crossing off the chopping block.
Yeah. Like, it's hard to compare because you're talking about a Switch game versus these Steam exclusives. But generally... people are talking more about these games on Steam than they did about Animal Crossing anymore.
Game distribution in our current society is a very complicated thing.
Yeah, but
increasingly we're not having retail copies. We're having, it's the whole free-to-play thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying, like, you can still do it by, like, how many people are even talking about it on social media.
It's just a lot harder to get objective numbers because you tried looking in the stats, didn't you? What'd you come up with?
Well, Steam makes it very hard to get their numbers, of course. But I looked on Steam Spy for those numbers, and, like, Fall Guys was near the top, and Among Us was also up there. So, yeah.
But, I mean, none of this is to say that your standard fare, gritty, realistic AAA games don't still have an audience these days.
Yeah, the MPD, the research...
The what?
This MPD website where they aggregate video game sales, like The Last of Us Part 2 and then those new games were still at the top. Ghost of Tsushima was at the top,
I just think It's important, however, to keep in mind that those type of games represent the status quo. The fact that those games are popular is not contrary to a rise in more therapeutic games that we've been talking about, but rather are representative of a decline in the demand for such pessimism.
Because those games are really pessimistic.
Yeah, after all, the daily lives of anyone who has their eyes open to the world are already steeped in pessimism.
Yeah, I think gritty realism gets tiring when reality starts getting even grittier.
Like, I mean, honestly, The Last of Us Part 2 was a big, whole controversial, messy affair. And I know there's a lot of aspects going into that, but I don't think it would have been as volatile if it had been released, say, last year.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I think we're genuinely in a more competitive market these days, where being the gritty, most realistic thing doesn't mean you're a guaranteed success. It matters what you have to say and bring to the table.
Definitely.
Whereas, like, I think when the first Last of Us game came out, it was basically just immediately skyrocketed to absolute success.
I mean, sales numbers for The Last of Us Part 2 aren't anything to balk at, but I still think you're correct in that it's more competitive than normal.
I mean,
For example, Ghost of Tsushima outranked it, and that's at least a game focused on a specific culture and stuff.
well, okay. First of all, okay, so the first Last of Us was specifically sold on the idea of, like, showing the technology of, like, the PS4 and stuff. Like, it was very advanced for its time. So The Last of Us Part 2, I think, was supposed to basically try to do that again. And people just, quite frankly, don't care as much. Like, we're kind of reaching a plateau of graphical fidelity. You know, the more and more close to realism we get, how long is it going to be before it's just, you know, photos and deepfakes, right? But I think... Yeah, you bring up Ghost of Tsushima or whatever. Honestly, I have hardly heard a single person talking about that game.
Yeah,
so
see,
I don't
that's
know
another
where
thing.
these people are.
You see, that's another thing. Even if these games have high sales numbers, it's like, where's the discussion on this?
I mean, I think it represents, you know, our society is very culturally divided in numerous aspects, right? And I think one, albeit minor aspect is, you know, the whole, like, retail system versus a more online distribution.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think, like, Ghost of Tsushima is very, you know, status quo, very realistic.
You know what? I think it's because outside of, like, gaming communities or whatever you want to call it, those games don't really get discussed that much. And so it's only games like Animal Crossing, Fall Guys, and Among Us that break into the majority of people that actually have so many people talking about them. And, you know, I really think these AAA games, the discussion around them isn't as widespread.
Sure. I just think that, like, it's important to mention that these AAA games seem to be marketed to and made more and more for specifically white men, when everyone still thinks that they make up the majority of the people who play video games.
Press X to doubt.
Right. I don't think that is necessarily true. I think it's probably not true. But
I think this only is still a thing that exists because of the sexist toy aisle thing when video games first came out. And it's...
yeah, video games were marketed as
ridiculous.
boys' toys.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous that marketing from so long ago still managed to pervade society to the point where
I mean,
it affects which games get made.
I mean, it's emblematic of patriarchy.
Yeah, true.
But I think more recently what you're revealing here is that we think of white young men as the default. It's the reason why, if you take every protagonist in video game history, almost all of them are going to be 30-year-old gruff men. And I think Ghost of Tsushima would reveal that. Maybe there's a Japanese demographic. I don't know the specifics of how that game was made. I know it has some type of Asian theme. I don't know if it's Japanese or Chinese.
I think it's Japanese, judging by the samurai sort of aesthetic.
I do know the story was very incongruous. The whole thing is basically like, I'm a good guy, but also you're a peasant. You know,
Yeah.
that's like the one criticism that managed to leak through to my face.
Yeah, because you haven't heard that much about it, have you?
Exactly. And I just think games like Fall Guys, Among Us, Animal Crossing, they are very popular to a very diverse set of people. Non-white people, non-men, women, trans people, non-binary people.
Anyone.
It's
yeah.
honestly kind of insulting that Guys is the name of Fall Guys. Come on, Fall Folks would have been such a better name. And it feels like you were just trying to rip off Shy Guy from Mario. Whatever.
Only you would hear Fall Guys and think Shy Guy.
I mean, look at them. If their faces were removable, they'd be Shy Guys. Anyway.
Not necessarily.
I was going to go on with more examples, but you get the point. Mm-hmm. That these multiplayer games are so removed from reality. They're also removed from, inherent white supremacy, patriarchy, and even kind of capitalism to an extent. Although I would argue capitalism less so, because there's been such deliberate effort to intrude upon these games with like microtransactions and other capitalist practices.
Yep. Capitalism in Minecraft. There is no capitalism, really.
Actually, no. There's this YouTube user called ThoughtSlime that has a great analysis on how Minecraft is the anarcho-capitalist utopia.
Oh, really?
He makes some amazing points. Basically, Minecraft is inherently kind of a colonialist kind of game where you just, use the land to your heart's content.
Oh, yeah, I did dig out the top of a plateau for a house.
How many villages have you destroyed?
I need the mossy cobblestone, okay?
You needed the resources. Needed the resources.
I replaced the cobblestone. I replace it with regular cobblestone.
So you just stole some of the resources, then.
I replace it. Although there was that time I accidentally burned down the blacksmith's house. But he had lava in his house. It's not my fault.
It's not your fault that you decided to go mess with his lava.
Why would you have lava?
Are you saying he was asking for it?
No, I'm just saying it's not a good idea to have lava next to a wood house.
And who are you to be the judge of that? So, Minecraft has some problems with that. But it's obviously easy to just be like, well, it's a game, it's a very sandbox, and these things are more implicated. It's still important to talk about them and recognize them. Mm-hmm. But obviously, it's like Minecraft physics are so divorced from reality.
Yeah.
Even the way gravity works is just like, oh
my god, here goes the tangent about how you wish physics were more realistic in Minecraft.
I mean, I don't want to have to feel like I'm living in a quantum mechanical world that operates by a different set of laws. Newton, who's that? We deal with Minecraft man here. I don't know what a named character.
We deal with Steve here. Okay. Steve is the name of the generic player character.
Oh, okay.
Everything is a block. Everything is a block. And you want realism.
I just want better physics. That's all I want. That's all I want. I want more intuitive physics. Anyway, we got distracted from my point. What was my point again?
I don't know.
Something about white people? Capitalism. We were talking about capitalism.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess just to say that the status quo is marketed to the status quo. More transgressive games tend to be marketed towards more diverse audiences.
Yeah, and I think that's really a thing of indie developers realizing what companies haven't, and that's
not necessarily. I wouldn't call Fall Guys indie, but
who's the developer?
Well, the developer may have been indie, but they've been skyrocketed to such fame, and honestly, they seem very corporate from what I can tell.
Well, that's fine and all.
But basically, they're a new contestant to the industry.
Yeah, I'm just saying that new people to the industry are more likely to see this bullshit for what it is, and that why are you making games for white men anymore? There's just so many more diverse people out there.
And I don't know, Last of Us Part 1, Joel, the white man gruff character, he was that, That story has been told so many times. It's not saying that those stories shouldn't exist. I actually enjoyed The Last of Us Part 1. Last of Us Part 2 had some new curveballs your way. I don't think it was a bad game. I don't think it was the best game ever.
Yeah.
But like those stories have been told. What we are looking for
So
are
many times.
Yeah, so it's just, I think it's good to have different, more varied stories.
Yeah, like who doesn't want to see or read a cool story about a bunch of astronauts on the space station and they all get killed off one by one and they have to find the murderer before the space station gets sabotaged? And
Well, I mean, yeah, like even, I guess story is the wrong word. I guess a better word would be experience. Because these, Fall Guys and Among Us are games, maybe it speaks to how bare bones, real good, diverse narratives have been in the video game industry, that queer people are having to literally write their own stories. You play Fall Guys, you play Among Us, you're literally writing your own story. Animal Crossing too. You're paving your own fun adventure that's inclusive.
yeah, like Animal Crossing got rid of gender. They call it style now.
Cool.
And so, like, they wouldn't have done that before. And I feel like it's just emblematic of them realizing that, like, gender is bullshit.
Yeah, and
and it always has been. But
When we say divorce from reality, obviously, you are what your culture has made you into. You know what I mean? You can try to acknowledge that, but there's going to be biases that we all carry within us. As a white person, I can myself say that I'm never going to be able to divorce myself from just white supremacy. That's always going to have to be something I check myself on to make sure I don't do it, because it's just seeped into so much of our society. I mean, you just simply can't live in America, a 70% white country, on stolen native land without having to keep in mind how we got to this point and make a conscious effort to not try to continue that legacy.
yeah.
So it's just, I think these things seep through. Like with Fall Guys, for example, I would argue that's an element of patriarchy seeping into the game by using the word guys, particularly when such a word wasn't needed. Again, folks is so better. So it's not to say that these ideas are very cleanly torn apart. It's messy. But they're far enough removed from reality that I just think that people genuinely are seeking this stuff out to connect with their fellow people around the world of all kinds.
Yeah.
And just say, look, the world's on fire. You want to go on a game show and see who can race to the end without dying? Without being flung into the abyss?
And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think so. I've seen other people play it and whatnot, and there's so many amazing moments. Like there's this one video on YouTube I saw, and it was just this young Japanese girl, and she was playing Fall Guys, and I she's speaking Japanese, so I have no idea what she was saying, right? But she's like playing the game, and she's like jumping over obstacles, being like, yeah, oh got it, yeah. And then like all of a sudden like a big like blade like smacks her and she goes flying off the screen and gets set back to like last place. And when it hits her, she's going, yeah. But no harm, no foul, because this is just a game. You can start over and have some fun again.
Could we talk about a recent example of like games made specifically for white men?
Oh no, I was having so much fun. Why you gotta ruin it, Kira?
We gotta talk about it.
Okay, because while there are
brought it up earlier.
While there are games like what we've been talking about that are actively trying to divorce yourself from reality, which, for the record, is probably a smart business decision because it means you don't have to make a political stance.
Yeah.
Which is a little cowardly. Again, I understand you want your mental health, but please protest and try to support human rights if you can. So if you want to make an overtly political game, I would commend you for it if you're going to genuinely try to make the world a better place. We need those. I don't trust corporations to make those, though.
And this is a great example as to why.
Because they're not going to do it right. They're going to do it horribly.
Yeah.
So maybe corporations, put your foot in your mouth. Just stop. Just
stop. Can I explain the example?
Your goal to make money is antithetical to the future of humanity.
Can I please go on with the example?
You don't have to ask my permission. Just go.
I was just wondering if you were done. All right, so we mentioned this earlier, but Ubisoft is coming out with a new Tom Clancy game, and there was a trailer for it.
Wait. Before you say anything about it, though, Ubisoft's Tom... I hate how you plasters his name over every single game.
It's what it's called. I don't remember the names beyond that, so...
Ubisoft's Tommy Games. I'm going to call him Tommy.
Okay.
Just to, nudge him a bit. But Tommy just loves making these extremely authoritarian games. They're all about how cops are great, actually. Mm-hmm. They've made so many of them, and they're all based on, I guess, books he's written or something, which I imagine must be trash. There have been so many controversies. The first time I ever heard about this series was when they portrayed every single shootable bad guy in the streets as someone wearing a hoodie.
Wow. Which,
if you don't know, is overtly racist because hoodies are effectively a dog whistle or stereotype for black people. Mm-hmm. And the reason that comes about is because of systemic racism, where
I know.
I mean, there are a significant number of black people that really do wear hoodies to try to literally hide their blackness from cops, which kind of backfires when cops just start shooting people for wearing hoodies. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I remember growing up in my very white family that a hoodie was a no-no. Wow. That was the first time I heard about them. And then more recently, they had what was it, the Division 2? Right?
Yeah, and the Division 2 literally starts with asking, did you have a gun? Did your neighbor? Literally right off the bat. Yeah,
it's about gun rights and the fall of society, a civil war, basically.
But it's not political.
Yeah. They went out of their ways to be oh, it's not political. And what they really meant is they tried to avoid it being overtly partisan.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, the newest trailer is the worst one yet.
It's just full-on fascist.
Yeah, basically, you usually play as some kind of government strike team in some of these games.
A cop.
Yeah, basically. In some of them. In the Division cop. And 2, there's other things or whatever.
You play as secret cops.
Okay.
Maybe almost a secret police.
Okay, I get it.
Maybe a Gestapo.
Anyway, so you play as this government strike force fighting against a shadowy terrorist organization taking advantage of civil unrest.
Organizing.
That's a quote, by the way. Taking advantage of civil unrest. That's a quote.
The trailer uses Black Fist imagery.
Yep. The plot seems almost wholesale taken from a shitty Ben Shapiro novel.
We don't really need to talk about this. It's kind of antithetical to what this episode's supposed to be about. You really wanted to talk about this example of some corporation completely going the other way. I'm really hoping they tank, honestly. I'm hoping this game...
It probably will, to be honest.
Actually, no. All the people who bought Ghost of Tsushima are probably going to buy this game.
Ugh, just don't think about it.
Or at least a good chunk of it.
It's like a mobile game, though, so maybe not. At least I think so. I don't remember. I honestly don't even remember what platform it's for.
If you're curious, though, Ubisoft responded to the controversy by saying they'll remove the protest symbols of the Black Fist from the game.
As if that was the issue and not the low-key anti-Semitic plot.
It's not even that low-key. They don't they even use the phrase New World Order at some point?
I don't know. If you want to know more about this, just watch Jim Sterling's video. He goes in depth.
He has several, actually.
Yeah. So just watch those if you really want to know more about it. Let's talk about more happy things. Because, how are minorities supposed to enjoy games like that? How?
You're right, because that's what pushes people away. There's going to be almost zero black or Jewish people that are ever going to play that game because it is overtly hostile towards them. And like Ubisoft's like, well, we didn't say Jewish. Like, don't you realize there have been like 70 years at least, that's just like taking to World War II, of people specifically saying Jewish without saying the word Jewish. It's what a dog whistle is. They replaced Jewish with Cabal. They replaced Cabal with Illuminati. They replaced Illuminati with World Order. They replaced World Order with Globalists. They replaced Globalists with elites.
Yeah.
And then it's not far from replacing elites with whatever specific group currently in power that you particularly hate. And so when protests come around, you just replace it with protests. Because goodness forbid you even imagine the concept of a decentralized movement that isn't being organized by any particular person. Goodness forbid you actually just realize you and what you stand for is just reviled by the majority of humanity independently.
And that's why games that aren't so based in reality are meant for anyone and everyone to enjoy, and they're just so much better.
It is a little sad, though, that we have to divorce reality to be able to include the majority. Like
I think it's just emblematic of the society we live in.
Yeah, but we don't get games that are just like, oh, here's a game with an entire cast of people of color, or queer people. Or I mean, like you saw what happened with Last of Us 2 with the transgender character.
I mean, I guess, but I feel like you just have to look harder for those.
But why should I have to look harder?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I agree with you.
Yeah, it seems rather an unfair standard, if you ask me. So I'm glad that games like Fall Guys and Among Us and Minecraft and Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, I'm sure eventually Pokemon might make this list whenever they release another one, if they decide to make them good again.
Yeah, it just didn't release at the right time.
Not to mention the last one was pretty awful.
Yeah.
My least favorite Pokemon games.
Yeah.
But it just seems like we have to completely divorce ourselves from this reality right now because it's too difficult to actually make games that say the right things to try to pull us out of this reality. So I can understand some people thinking that there's a certain element of cowardice to this. That, yes, I think people need therapy. I think it's good for a lot of the afflicted right now to be able to play these games. If you're privileged enough to have them, that's a whole other thing because, it's why we mentioned America in the beginning, because so much of the rest of the world has already been suffering, and they don't have something like this. But we have it, so may as well use it. But I can't help but keep thinking about how, well, yeah, it's easy for a corporation to just try to stay out of it and not pick a side if they think that's going to make them money. Ubisoft may be doubling down, but most of the other corporations seem to at least know somewhat better.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, and I agree with you. But
by the way, Ubisoft is the rape game industry. Just so you know, don't ever try to work there.
Well, you could. You're a white man.
Well, okay, fine. Don't work there if you're not a white man.
Yeah. Anyway, what was I gonna say?
I mean, don't work there regardless, but...
Yeah. But anyway, I was saying, yeah, but I feel like at least if you recognize that you can't do the correct ideas justice, that you can't do it right, that you're at least doing something else that's good in providing something fun for people to use.
I mean, yeah, and I think at the end of the day, a corporation just releasing a fun time and not making a statement on it, because obviously they wouldn't make a good one, is still ultimately a boon for society, because it makes a very diverse crowd of people, a lot of non-white, non-cis, etc., people being able to enjoy it, making their lives better. So ultimately it is a benefit to society. I just don't. I'm just saying it's not the only way you can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would still love some like anti-Ubisoft games. Like maybe anti-Semitism is bad games instead of Ubisoft's take of anti-Semitism is good actually.
We did have that. That was Wolfenstein, where you literally spend the entire game shooting Nazis.
We need a new Wolfenstein then.
Well, one that's better than the newest one that came out. Than Youngblood.
Why is it that like every single game we've talked about today has like, maybe not every single one, but most of them have like microtransactions? So like even in our escape from reality, we're still being sold to.
Minecraft doesn't. Well, actually there is a version that does, but not the version that we have.
Yay. Burn it down. Burn it all down. Go to the Nether, get some lava, bring it back, and burn it down. And hopefully it will flow in a way that makes some physical sense.
That was hilarious. What I was gonna say is that Microsoft bought Minecraft, and they made their own version.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and they made it shitty.
Yeah.
But at least the original's still available. Well, original, and it's still being worked on.
Okay, I made a powerful endpoint, and then you just negated it.
That was really funny.
Would have been the perfect moment to sign off. Anyway, don't feel guilty for playing the games you like. If you like the gritty, realistic games, keep playing those. There is nothing wrong with that idea in itself. Be critical of the games you play. Like Last of Us Part 2 is a great example. Not perfect, not the worst thing. Good. Mm-hmm. And we could analyze that, but I don't want to. Mm-hmm. But, just don't take anything as gospel and have fun. The world is bleak. Try to make the world a better place, but don't be afraid to take some you time. Okay?
Yeah. Have some fun while you can.
Yeah, before it all burns down.
Bye.
Make sure you have a Molotov ready.
Yep.
Play your video games. Have a can of beer and have a can of Molotov. I should have done a glass, not a can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.